Formula Access. We just keep adding people. I had a lot of trouble when we got started looking for drivers, and they're just now coming. And honestly, you guys, these are some of my favorite people to talk to. These are high-performing, driven, ambitious humans, and they are incredible. Today, I got a really special episode, Abbie Eaton. Abbie's an incredible human being. She is a fierce competitor and warrior, and we recorded this on Halloween and trick-or-treaters showed up. We did have an agreement during the episode that if a trick-or-treater showed up in a racing suit, that we would invite them on the show. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but enjoy, guys. She's a treat. Enjoy. Formula Access. Told you I'd be bringing the people of motorsports to your doorstep. Today, we have a very, very special guest from a very different part of motorsports than we're used to hearing about. I'm really excited to have her on the show. Abbie Eaton, directly from the W Series. She is a two-time British champion. She is somebody that we want to hear from, and I am so excited. Abbie, thank you so much for being on the show.
That's all right. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I was really excited when you responded to this because generally it's really hard to get drivers to have a conversation until like January or February. And you are one of 3 drivers on the planet that have responded to me. So I appreciate it. The audience appreciates it. And we're really glad to have you.
That's all right. No worries. I mean, it's a bit of a strange time for me that the season that I was supposed to be in, I should actually be in Mexico right now, ended, so I've got all this free time to chat to people like you, so thank you for getting in touch.
Oh, we're so sorry to hear that. That series would have gone all the way to Abu Dhabi at the end of November, right?
So our season would have ended in Mexico, so this would have been our last weekend. So we would have had one race in Austin, COTA, and then directly to here, and then it was a double header for Mexico, and then that would have been the end of our season.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I was actually at COTA. That was my first Formula One race that I've ever attended. I've been a fan for
crazy, right?
What's that?
I bet it was crazy, right?
It was. For 20 years, I've been following Formula One and IndyCar, very, very closely. And I almost went to the crazy 2007 American Grand Prix, and something got messed up with babysitting and we couldn't go. And then like 3/4 of the grid didn't even race. And so as you can see in my setup back here, I have a pretty, you don't get this from the grass. So,
no.
I have all my data and track positioning and,
you know what's going on.
I do.
You're probably in the loop more than some of the teams.
Maybe. I'm trying to recreate the pit wall, so one day I can take over for Christian Horner when he retires.
Is that the plan? That's the goal.
Yeah, I just like, how can I set an impossible dream and have so much pressure that my hair turns gray and I go crazy? So
tick, done.
But anyway, so our audience is certainly global, primarily US. I just want to let everybody know kind of who you are and what you do today. What do you do as a driver?
So I've been racing for over 20 years now. Started in go-karts when I was 10 years old. Grew up watching my dad race. So it was only a matter of time until I pestered him and he allowed me to start racing. Moved through the ranks, did kind of GT cars, touring cars, and then the last couple of years I've been in W Series in the Formula 3 car. So, my background mainly is GT cars, so GT3s, GT4s. I've been lucky enough to drive Ferraris, Lamborghinis, all that kind of stuff. So very, very big, heavy machinery. And I'd never really thought about, single seaters because mainly my dad had never done it. So I've never really kind of grown up thinking that's something I wanted to do. And also the cost side of single seaters is super expensive. So to have an opportunity like W Series provided, a kind of midpoint of my career, was something quite cool. And, I had to kind of grab it with 2 hands. And I had a little bit of an incident at the end of last year, ended up breaking my back. So the last couple of years has been an interesting journey, but I've certainly learnt a lot. And yeah, a shame that this season had to be cut short for W Series.
That's unfortunate. It was bad to see that go. I like the platform that it is. I wish it was constructed a little bit differently, but I think it showcases a major problem that you see in motorsports today, and whatnot. And I actually want to unpack everything that you just said, and you hit on like 9 by 10 topics here. So I'm glad that you kind of teed those up for me. So you're coming off a W Series. How was 2022 for you? I mean, you're coming off a pretty serious injury from
Yeah.
last season, but how did this year fare for you?
So really, this year, I had to look at it in a very different way to all the other seasons that I've kind of, attacked. I broke 2 vertebrae in my back in October last year, actually a week ago, almost a year and a week ago. So the off season for me was basically in a back and neck brace for 4 months, and I had about 6 weeks out of the brace before the first round at Miami. So I was very unconditioned. My body, my strength, my endurance, everything, even my mobility was very, very poor. So, I came into this year just wanting to prove more than anything that, I could do it. And I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I knew that, the results were probably not going to be where I wanted them to be, but I had to kind of, view it differently and not look at the results and the positions and lap times, and actually more judge it on, I was able to, I didn't have pain for this amount of time, and the next race I could go a little bit longer and a little bit longer, and view it that way. And, weirdly, if this year I got wiped out twice through other drivers, and if that hadn't have happened, actually, it was a very, very good year. Top 6, 7 majority of the time before I got hit off. So yeah, I've set out and kind of achieved way more than what I'd planned to this year, given the circumstances that I came into the season with.
How and I'll get into the injury later, but how has that injury affected? I mean, when you get your first shunt coming back from that, I mean, how does that feel? I mean, is it nerve-wracking? I mean, as a race car driver, do you even allow yourself to think about that stuff?
Usually no, but when you have a kind of serious injury, this is the first time that I've had to kind of work on my kind of psychology side of it as well. And that's still a kind of ongoing thing that I'm having to do. And I didn't have to wait long to have my first incident. It was my very first race back on the track in Miami. So I was in 6th place. Felt really good. Was really pleased, thinking, I'd actually equaled my best. The highest I finished last year, I think, was 6th or 5th or 6th. So I was thinking, this is great for my first time back. And then one of the girls had got some damage on her car, and the driver was a little bit desperate, and she ended up wiping me out. So I ticked that box pretty early. And the first thing you think is, am I okay? Right, okay, I'm fine. Because my brain immediately goes to my parents watching, and my mum, bless her. So I was like, I'm all right, like, don't worry. Hopped out the car. I was like, I'm fine. Don't stress. So it's always good to get that kind of gremlin or monkey off your back, straight away, get it done, and concentrate on what you need to do.
Jeez. So a W Series car is identical to the F3 car or the F4?
No, so it's completely different to both of them. So the W Series car is it's an Asian F3 car, so it's the Tatus 318 chassis. So it's the same car that you'll see running in Formula Regional and Asian F3 as well. So if you were to kind of try and kind of place it in comparison to the other stuff, you've got F4, and then the W Series cars above the F4, and then you'll have F3 and so on. So if you compare lap times, like the FIA F3 are about maybe 10, 12 seconds quicker than us on a lap. So the W Series car is pretty basic in terms of well, the technology on it, in terms of aero. We don't run DRS, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a lot lower than FIA F3.
What's the likely next step for a W Series driver?
I think the kind of ladder that they're hoping is you go into FIA F3. So you'll do W Series. You might do a Formula Regional, FRECA it's called now, and then jump into FIA F3. But yeah, the kind of, I suppose, ladder is F4, W Series, F3, F2, and F1. But there are various different routes that you can get into or go out to. But that I think is the main goal of W Series, is to try and get someone on that linear route to F1.
Is that your goal?
Absolutely not. No, no. I'm too old for F1. It's something I've never wanted to do. I'm a more kind of GT, tin top, endurance, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Not on the goal for me. I mean, if someone offered me a go in an F1 car, I would obviously bite their hand off, but yeah, it's a no from me.
So GT car. I can't remember who I had on. It was a young driver going up through the IndyCar ranks, and I had gone to St. Pete earlier this year, and I was telling him that, as I was walking all the support series garages, the GT and the supercars were like my favorite part of the whole track, because it was like a bunch of wealthy people with like $1 million cars with $1 million of upgrades on it, and they had their own private motorhomes. It just felt like my son is obsessed with that stuff, and I just was like, this is way cooler.
Yeah, kind of GT racing, it depends what kind of category you race within GT racing. So you can race in the kind of AM championship, which is where you have amateur drivers, so like the lower grade ones, or you have Pro-Am, which is a mixture of the two, or you have Pro, which is fully pro, like factory drivers, works drivers. And generally you might have like a gentleman type AM driver that you'll basically drive with, so you'll coach him, and then you'll be the pro driver to jump in and kind of set the faster laps. And then he, his kind of thing that we need is the finance, and then our kind of skill that he needs is how to get around the track fast. So it both works hand in hand with each other.
So you operate as like a coach / teammate?
Yeah, pretty much. Some of the cars have like 3 to 4 drivers in. So you might have 2 pros and 1 AM, and the pros work together not only to, do, I suppose, 2/3 of the race, but also to coach the AM driver to be as fast as they can be, because there's a saying, you're only as fast as the AM driver type thing. So if you can make everyone as fast as possible while still retaining that kind of AM label, then that is the perfect opportunity in GT racing.
And I want to get into that, because you coach as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched older kids coach my son in karting, and even like a Saturday afternoon makes a significant difference. When you're trackside, like how imperative is your experience? Is it track? Is it handling, setup? Like what specifically are you bringing to the table that is like game changing? Is it all of it?
Everything. Yeah, everything, all of the above. So it's just general experience of the whole thing. Not only that, but attitude, and what things to do off the track, and even away from the race weekends, what you should be doing, and how you should be conducting yourself. Because it's very, I'm 30 years old and I've been racing for over 20 years. So there's a lot that you pick up along the way. There's a lot of mistakes that I've made along the way that you learn from. And when I first started, really driver coaches weren't a big thing, and I never really had any, because they're expensive as well. Whereas now it's abnormal to not have a driver coach, and the kind of stuff that I learned over, let's say, a 10-year period, these kids are now learning within 2 years, a year, 2 years. So they're at a very, very high level of driving a lot younger, which is great. It's fabulous because it gives me a job to do, and allows me to pass what I've learned on to the kids as well. So you can pass this on to some gent drivers that have maybe come into the sport. They've made money with their business, and they decide to give racing a go at 40, 50 years old or something, and that's when you can teach them the same stuff.
Okay, so give me an example. What are they doing off track that you can't learn without a coach? What is it? Diet, exercise, or is it just character?
Yep, diet, exercise, how to deal with things when failures, when something goes wrong, if the team make a mistake, or how to handle your own failures, your own mistakes, or if something fails on the car and it wasn't your fault and you might have been leading and you could win the championship, but it's been taken out of your hands, and how to conduct yourself with that, or certain championship opportunities. If there's another opportunity that comes up, but it's not really obvious whether that's the right thing to do or not, it's to really weigh up all the options that are there in front of someone and say, well, it could go this way, or you could do it like this, or it's just shining a little bit of kind of order and wiser is what I like to think. And just giving extra pointers, and even myself, I still look for advice from my fellow racers and people that I respect and look up to. I'll always give them a call and say, what do you think about this, and is this a good or a bad thing?
How willing are they to help you out? I mean, are you talking to other drivers in W Series, other people in the same series as you, or people that across the spectrum of motorsport?
Yeah, people across the spectrum. The fellow drivers that I race against, drivers that have won Le Mans 24-hour, all sorts of people, just to really to pick their brain and well, basically do what I do when I coach people, is to tap into their kind of experiences and their view on things, and things that they might have come up against, and things that they have seen as being positive or useful, or tips and tricks that they've learned along the way. And it's just trying to absorb that as much as possible, because you never stop learning. And I think there are a lot of kids, especially that have had coaching from a very young age and that have been racing from a very young age. Their head gets very large very quickly, and they become quite arrogant, which you do need to be a driver. You need to, any athlete, sports person, you do need a little bit of arrogance and confidence to you. But there's a fine line, and I've been, there you go, trick or treaters. It's Halloween, guys.
You need to get that.
Let me see. I'll see. Jess? There you go, it's Halloween in the UK. Hang on, wait there, I'll go do it. I'll do it, Jess, it's fine. Oh my goodness, you look good. How are you? Good. Take another one. See you later. There you go. All happens in the UK.
You have to leave that in the show.
That's fine. Yeah, funny. That's our first one, actually. Our first one of the evening. What time is it?
If any of them come in dressed as a race car driver, you have to bring them into the...
I'll bring him in. Yeah, that was a fairy, I think, or something. It wasn't very scary.
Okay. So here's a hot topic question before I go back. So I think here stateside, I would say the majority of fans that I run into are, your typical Drive to Survive fan, may have had some time with NASCAR, some time with IndyCar, couldn't really tell you the difference between IndyCar and Formula One. And I think there's always a confusion of how the ladder system works, which is like, professional sports stateside is, high school, college, minor leagues, pro. And I think in motorsports, it's way different. It's, you know,
Money.
you spend somebody's fortune until you get to the top, and then you get a paycheck.
Yeah.
And, you know, it takes 20 years to arrive at that point. When you look at the W Series and you look at, you know, to me, really talented drivers that are in this kind of bucket, to me, it feels like when you have let's use Jamie as an example. You know, you've got a 3-time champion here. You know, if you had a 3-time Formula 4 champion, you know, or somebody that had won 4 successive championships like Oscar Piastri, you know, or 3 championships, whatever he has done recently, there's kind of a clamor to push them through the system and get them to the highest level really, really quick.
Yeah.
What is it that stops that from taking place, to even put, you know, you or Jamie or any of the other women in the series into Formula 3? What is that barrier, or what is the issue with?
It's just finance. It genuinely just is money. And it looks worse, or people can maybe see it as, you know, females not getting the opportunity, but which to a certain degree probably is a little bit, but it's more of a kind of numbers game. So, you know, if you think let's dumb it down and say there's 1,000 guys that race, and let's say out of those 1,000 guys there might be 10 girls that race, and you know, out of those 1,000 guys that race, there's maybe 100 of them that are from millionaire families. So again, you look down to the females, and actually, how many is there? There's like two females that have got millionaire families, but one of them's rubbish and one of them's good. So then you've only got one girl that's good enough to do it. So, you know, you have to have a lot of money behind you. You have to have a bit of talent, and you have to have a bit of luck. But if you haven't got talent, you haven't got luck, but you've got a load of money, that's all you need. And it's frustrating. You know, you see some drivers in F1 that, you know, come in for a year and cause carnage and then leave. And they've kind of, you know, paid really for their seat. And, you know, there are some drivers in there that have paid for their seat, they've paid for their team, but actually, you know, they are still decent drivers, which it's not refreshing to see, because, you know, sometimes it is difficult to see, you know, these drivers that kind of buy their way into seats when you have extremely talented drivers that haven't got the money. And you know, I've come from a background where we haven't had a load of money to throw at racing, and, you know, yes, I've raced for over 20 years, but actually before W Series I only had 5 full seasons of racing, whereas the other 15 years were like on and off 2-3 races during the year. So you know, it would be lovely to all have money to race what you want from a young age, you know, have all the practice, all the driver coaching and all that kind of stuff, which, you know, the rich kids get straight away. But at the end of the day, you can't be bitter about that, because, you know, if my dad was in the same position, I would get, you know, the same opportunities. So, you know, you just have to work harder, and it makes it more rewarding when you're a lot faster than them on track. So that's motorsport, unfortunately.
That is always exactly what I say when I write. You know, the strolls. You know, it's like, you know what? If I was Lawrence, I would do the exact same thing.
Exactly.
I have children. I get it.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you.
I think there should be more stuff done with like organizations like McLaren, Mercedes, etc. You know, obviously Lewis Hamilton got picked up very, very young by you know, a team, and he was funded from like age 12. You know, there needs to be more stuff like that done for young kids who look like they have some potential, who haven't got money behind them. But you see, you know, often now that there'll be some kids that go up against each other, and actually it's easier for the teams to pick someone that has got a bit of money to help bring them, because then they'll bring budget to the team when they reach F1. So that side of the sport needs to change a little bit. We've kind of gone backwards in time from that. You know, 20 years ago, you know, you hear stories of people, even in, you know, a championship over here called British Touring Cars, you know, Jason Plato, one of the drivers in that, he went parked at the factory of the guy he wanted to race for, jumped out the car when, you know, the guy turned up in the morning and said, you know, I'm Jason, I really want to race for you. And then gave him a test and he got a drive. So stuff like that doesn't happen anymore.
Abbie, I actually want to applaud you for picking up on that. I can't tell you how many young people that I run into who, you know, as we talked about before we started, are so intimidated by the system that it almost locks them up rather than, you know, trying to shine in the sun. And I think that's accomplished by exactly what you just described. I mean, that's what Lewis did, you know,
Mm.
and I think people forget how easy it is to get a hold of people and like, I don't know, as weird as it to like reach out and touch somebody, it's
Mm.
really, really easy to do that. Now, that might look really differently for everybody's situation. It might be I
Yeah.
had to send 5 emails to one person, or I had to send 5,000 emails to one person. But, you know, I've started talking to a number of young drivers locally here stateside and just helping them develop more of an awareness of who they are. And the
Mm.
first question I ask is like, who at the highest levels of motorsport have you reached out to? You know,
Mm.
and they generally can't answer that question, you know, or if they have, you know, hey, I sent Zach Brown an email. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
how many, you
Yeah.
know, and and I think that's the differentiator between those people. I can tell you as a business owner, and the business owners that I've surrounded myself with are always impressed by determination because it's
Yeah.
a
You
rare
have to be
trait.
tenacious, don't you? You know.
you're you're a race car driver, you have determination, and
Mm.
so, you know, when you see it, it's like a blinding light. You're like, holy cow, you
Mm.
know, I want to get behind this young person. I want to help this person in any way possible that I can. So
Yeah.
it's a good point. I think young people listening to this show, please take that. Like Abbie and I connected over a handful of emails, you know, and the 100 other guests that I have scheduled was just an email, an Instagram message, whatever it was, and they were nice enough to offer their time to be on this show and tell their stories. And
And
with
don't be
that,
put off if people don't respond. That's the thing, you know, like I spent years and years when I was younger, you know, sending sponsorship proposals out, constantly typing things up, spending hours and hours on these proposals, sending them to businesses and not hearing anything back. But the next year would come around and I would send it again and I'd send it again and again. And, you know, so I think there was one company that I would email and every year they'd say, oh, thank you very much, which was nice to actually get a response. You know, thank you very much, but we're not going to do anything this year. You know, and then the next year I'd send it, oh, thanks very much, but we're not going to do anything this year. And then the next time I sent it, they actually gave me some money. So, you know, just keep asking them. Either you'll be the really annoying person that they'll give money to, or, you know, give an opportunity to just to get you out of the way, or they'll eventually email back and say, you know, no, thank you. And if they don't email back at all, then just remember that and move on to the next and try the next opportunity. And you know, motorsport, as intimidating as it might feel, and it probably is in the kind of Formula One paddocks, you know, the grassroots level, which is where everything starts and where you can make your way up, everyone is generally friendly. And if you go in and say, look, you know, hello, my name's whatever, you know, I really want to get in to do this or to do that. Can you give me any advice? People will generally want to talk to you and will give you, you know, at the time of day. Over in the UK, I mean, I don't know what it's like in America, but I'm sure it'll be, you know, much the same because, you know, motorsport is a bit of a big family. You know, we're all like-minded people that love racing cars. So, you know, my biggest bit of advice is if you want to do something, you know, stick with it, be determined, you know, and don't leave any stone unturned. You know, if you want to succeed and you want to make it, then put the work in and, you know, don't take no for an answer until you achieve what you want to achieve.
now we can drop the mic and end it right there. I'm not
Boom.
going to, but seriously, sound advice.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. With that, I want to go back to the origin story. I think this is what fans really try to grasp when listening to the show. So you at 10 years old, your dad's a race car driver and you want to get a kart. Like, how did all this start? How did you even get the bug to want to get a kart? And then how did you finally convince him?
So I grew up watching him. So I was at tracks. Well, my mum was pregnant with me. You know, I was going to kart circuits, and then, you know, in my mum's belly, listening to the sound of karts, and you know, out in a pushchair watching my dad. And then as a toddler, I'd spend, you know, all the weekends at racetracks. And so I just grew up in this kind of atmosphere of motorsport. And, you know, I'd always watch my dad come in, you know, sweaty and, you know, smiling, and this adrenaline flowing. And, you know, I'd also see him come in, and if it wasn't a very good race, you know, he was so furious about things, and, you know, that passion that he had for it. And, you know, I've always been a bit of a tomboy, and I've always, you know, been a bit of a daredevil, adrenaline junkie. So, you know, it took a few years of pestering my dad, and it kind of fitted into, he had a sponsorship deal with a company, and basically when that came to an end, it was like a 3-year contract that came to an end, and then he actually had time to be able to kind of, you know, do things with me. So that's when I got my first go-kart. But even before that, I remember he was racing at a track in Scotland called Knockhill, and there was a little go-kart track on the side of the race circuit. And I kept saying to mum and dad, look, I want to go karting, you know, can I go? And they were like, no, sorry, you know, we're too busy, like we can't, you know, it's quite expensive. So, you know, we would, because they would do the hospitality as well. Mm-hmm. So I was like, right, well, if they're too busy and they're not going to give me any money, then I'm like, I want to do this. So I'm going to find a way to do it. So I went in the truck and I found like a little cardboard box, and I made a little like money slot in the top. And this was like back in the day when, you know, the kids would all play with each other, and you didn't have to, you know, you knew that everyone was keeping an eye out, and you didn't have to worry about anything. So I went around the entire race paddock with this box into all the awnings, and I was like, look, you know, everyone knew who I was, whose daughter I was. I'm like, look, mum and dad won't let me go karting. Like, can you, you know, sponsor me to go karting? Can you give me a little karting fund? And everyone was like, yeah, sure, put money in. And I went back to my parents and were like, look, I've raised the money to go karting. I can go karting now. And obviously my mum and dad were absolutely mortified. They were like, I can't believe you've just done that. You know, go and give everyone their money back. You know, that's really cheeky type thing. And obviously I went back and no one would take the money back. They were like, go karting, go karting. So I think from that point, really, my mum and dad were like, oh my God, like this girl is going to go racing, like come hell or high water, like she's going to do it. So yeah, it was just a drive and a want that I'd always had in me from a very young age.
That's fascinating. So, okay. So then how do you go from like asking? I mean, I did that as a kid for stuff that I wanted to, you know, and so I completely connect with you on that. But how did you go from, you know, obviously I don't think you didn't raise enough for an actual kart while you were at that one event. Yeah, if you did, that's
that would have been great. Yeah.
But how did you actually get into private karting and competing? Because that's
so my dad kind of knew the arena anyway. He knew the industry because he'd karted and so on. So, you know, I'd pestered him enough, and for my birthday he was like, okay, well, let's, you know, get her a go-kart and see what happens. So for my 10th birthday he got me a go-kart, and I remember walking up the drive and he was like, just, you know, come in the garage, I've got something to show you. And I used to spend hours in the garage. Like whenever my dad was in there working on his car, I would be in there like putting things in the vise and sawing things and getting in the way. And so I went in the garage and there was this go-kart there, and I remember saying, oh, is that for me? And he was like, well, who else is it going to be for? Sausage. That was my nickname. What else is it going to be for? Sausage. And I was like, oh my God, like, can we take it out? Can we go? So we took it to this car park, like just a private car park. And I just went and like whizzed around in the car park. And then a couple of weeks later, took it to a go-kart track and had my first laps around the circuit. And then, yeah, turned it into a hobby. And then so we did karting for about 4 years, and then the money that we were spending, or my mum and dad were spending on karting, it was costing the amount that we could actually move into cars and racing cars for the same amount of money. So when I was 15, we made that transition over into cars, and like it was at that point that I knew that this was something that I wanted to do as a career, because the karting I was a bit like, why am I missing my friend's birthday party for this? I wasn't really, it's a bit of a hobby type thing. But as soon as I got in a car, I was like, I do not want to do anything else other than race cars, and then stuck with it all the way through.
So it took actual cars for you to get the crazy addiction to racing.
I think it was in my blood. I don't think there was anything I think the addiction was already there, but it was, finding the right kind of in a cart. It's very kind of digital, like it's very precise. Whereas when you're in a car, the car's moving around all the time, so you're constantly adjusting and sliding, and that is where I just was like, this is absolutely awesome. I love this, and because I couldn't obviously drive. I couldn't drive on the roads. Age 15 over here, it's 18 that you can drive on the road. So yeah, it was. Well, I just remember being at Donington Park and doing my first lap around Donington Park in the UK and being like, oh, all right, I don't want to stop driving. I just stayed driving around Donington Park for the rest of my life.
How involved are they today with racing?
My parents?
Yeah.
So my dad actually still races. He's got a Holden Commodore, which is an Australian touring car. So it's from '83, Peter Brock replica that he kind of built himself. So he still races in that. And then when I'm racing, my parents will try and come and support me where they can. With being on the F1 calendar, tickets are very expensive, so they've already been able to come to Silverstone this year and last year. But any other race I do, they generally come along and support.
That's fascinating. So the only way that they can follow you around, like I would follow my son at a kart track, is to fly around the world and spend $900 a ticket or whatever the cost is for.
Yeah.
Wow.
Bless them. I know. So, it would have been nice for them to come to, well, it would have been great to have actually done COTA this year, and have them come out, because I've got family in the US as well. So, if money wasn't, an issue or whatever, we had enough to spare, then, I would have loved to have got everyone out for the American round. But there'll be other opportunities, and yeah, Silverstone isn't that bad.
So Abbie, walk me through. So I know motorsports is a money game, and you, like, as a professional race car driver, do you fully support yourself on coaching, and you do like TV stuff too? But is that how you eat?
Yeah, so predominantly my kind of income is from coaching and kind of filming precision driving stuff for kind of TV adverts, and also I do kind of like product training for like manufacturers. So if there's a manufacturer that's just brought out some new feature on a car, then we generally get roped in to kind of teach the dealers how to use that. And the last couple of years I've just signed with Fisker, which is an EV company, startup company. So I've been doing some work with kind of developing dynamics on the car. So I'm actually flying out to Austria next week to help with a little bit more of that. So yeah, it's anything really automotive related is where you can turn your hand to and use your skills and put them into various different arenas, I suppose.
Do you do movies like Fast and the Furious?
No, I haven't done any movies yet, but my other half, she's does quite a lot of movies, so she's done a few bits.
I've heard that. She hasn't had any business cards to you to go be
No, well, if they need someone tall and brunette, then I'm sure she'll put them my way. She's small, very small and blonde, so yeah, chop my legs off.
There you go. There you go. I mean, is that what's the ultimate goal for you, Abbie? I mean, can you make an income in GT cars, or do you inevitably go work for a major car company?
The dream has always been to be a works driver, factory driver for a manufacturer. So, what I ideally want to do is wake up in the morning, and go training, and then have some lunch, and then go on the simulator, and then go and do some more training in the afternoon, so that everything is all centered around, every single day is about being the best driver in the best shape as possibly can be. But you need to have income coming in every month to be able to do that, because that's your full-time job. So and it's difficult to find those kind of opportunities. And as we kind of touched on before, you need to spend a lot of money to be in these kind of in the arenas of these GT championships and so on. And if you pay to do it and you go out there and you win and win and win and win, then generally that's when the contract will come in, and then you'll get paid to do it. I have been very lucky that I've kind of created my own opportunities through the results I've been able to get off my own back, and other TV opportunities with the Grand Tour as well. They've all kind of helped other kind of drives and guest drives come my way as well. So it is what it is. I mean, ideally I would love to race for Bentley or Aston Martin or Ferrari, and anyone like that. That would be the goal. But kind of coming towards the latter part of my career, probably, if you look at it realistically, I've probably got maybe another 10 years or so, 10 or 15 years maximum left. I mean, you look at Alonso and so on, and they're still cracking on at 40 plus or whatever. So another 10 years or so. But I think the single seater element is going to come to a close very soon. I need to get back into GT cars, I think.
Is it ideal that after driving that you would be a team manager? I mean, would you go into the business side of racing?
Yeah, potentially. I've thought about kind of team manager roles, or other kind of just other roles where I can kind of use my experience and put it to good use. I mean, with the whole breaking back incident with sausage curbs, I've been quite vocal about trying to make tracks a bit more safe for drivers, and not only drivers but fans as well. And maybe something like that, or I quite like coaching the younger kids on how to handle themselves off the track, because I can't help but try and give advice when I see someone that's digging a hole for themselves to fall into. I'm like, come on, you are digging a big hole to fall in. Like, shut these and do the talking on the track. And I can't, I'm quite a kind of generous person from that point of view. If there's someone there that I think I can help or prevent them from making a silly mistake, then I'm always going to try and help them.
That I think young drivers need that so badly. I mean, I have teenagers, so I know that this is as far in the future as they think. And, there's no consequence for their action. But on the conversation of your back, that was a pretty rough accident. And I think, like, coming off that, I watched actually a video of that, and it reminded me so much of Alonso's event at Coda. Like, when I watched yours and then I watched his, it was, how it started was different, but like the wheelie that the car took and came back down, why was yours so much more detrimental than like his ability to like hit the wall and keep driving and finish in the point? And that's not a driver thing to me, that's the car. Like,
yeah, it was just so Alonso, he went over the wheel, which basically just launched him in the air, but then he landed on a flat piece of ground again and carried on going. So all the momentum, yes, it will have hit down fairly hard, but the momentum was moving forwards. Whereas mine, I basically kind of went over a sausage curb, which kind of launched me. So the bottom of the car hit the first sausage curb and launched me. But then I came and I landed directly on another sausage curb. So it stopped me instantly and then fired me into the air. So, the G forces involved on that was, I think it was like 60 G plus through my spine. So it was being caught that did the damage and then into the air. So if that sausage curb wasn't there, I likely wouldn't have broken my back. I would have just gone and carried on. So, you know, and the same with who was it? Lewis in Spa at the end of the straight, where he ended up, you know, being launched. Was it Alonso again, wasn't it? And you know, he landed, and you know, he was fine, and everyone's like, well, how come he's, you know, his back's fine? But it's just, mine was a bit of a freak accident in a way that, you know, I took off and landed just at the wrong point to break my back. But, you know, I say it was a freak accident, but then the following morning, Christian Weir did the exact same thing, had the exact same fracture in his back at the same circuit. So it's not that much of a freak accident.
And the FIA doesn't react to that, or the track owners?
They have made little movements. So, you know, I've been beating the drum very often, you know, whenever there's been an incident following of sausage curb cause, and there's been many, you know, just to keep it in the kind of public eye and keep the kind of focus on them. And we saw Hungary this year, they actually removed the sausage curbs, which was like a massive win, you know, and then coming to Kota last weekend, they'd removed sausage curbs on, certainly on the exit of the corners. There's still sausage curbs on the apexes, but on majority of the exits, they'd taken them away. So, you know, they're slowly making steps forwards. And, you know, I understand that it's difficult for them to police with track limits. And, you know, I know at the start of the year when they were trying to remove those sausage curbs and there was penalties being handed out, and I remember Verstappen kicking off and whining, you know, I wasn't track limits, like they're taking the laps away. But actually, if you fast forward to Kota, there was, I think, it was Kevin Magnussen, I think, had his time taken off him. So actually, they're starting to learn that you have to play it a little bit safe on the exit. And if you run wide and you get your lap taken off you, like, that's your fault, you know. And I get it's frustrating as a driver because you are literally on the limit, and we are talking centimeters, you know. I think the public sometimes, you know, when you make mistakes and you might be this much further out than, you know, that, and, you know, we're talking about centimeters and inches here when we're driving, and it's very, very a fine line from making a mistake.
So the sausage curb, for the people that don't know what they are put in place to police the track limits on the edges, like that you see on here.
Yeah, so they're basically meant to kind of disrupt the traction out of a corner. So if you run wide on the exit, basically it's like a speed bump. So if you run over that, then it kind of lifts the rear of the car so that the wheel will kind of wheel spin a little bit, or it'll stop that momentum forwards that you would gain speed running wider on the exit. So effectively, if you make the corner more open, you can carry more speed through it, so you will go faster. Whereas putting the sausage curbs on the exit basically forces people to stay within the track limits. But if you make a mistake or someone pushes you wide and you are forced over those sausage curbs, or, you know, let's say you go unconscious for whatever reason and you run over those sausage curbs, they can launch you so high. And I mean, we saw it in Macau with Sophia Fleur. She actually got hit on the entry into a corner, hit a sausage curb, and was launched into, it was a media kind of makeshift tent. Now, if that had been a grandstand, that would have been fatalities, you know, probably 10, 15 fatalities. So it's all right, people saying drivers just stick between the track limits, but, you know, there's more to it than that. And technology and safety moves forward every single year, you know, the halo and catch fencing, etc., etc. So sausage curbs, you know, they were put in for a good reason, but it's not working. So we need to think of something better to do the job, but to be safer.
Yeah, I think this weekend in Mexico, I was watching a couple of the sessions with Leclerc, and he was coming up on the curbs, and, you know, the cars are so low that they actually lift the wheels off the ground, and you can see the car pivoting on the sausage curve. Yeah. And then when they get back onto the track, they kind of, you know, get traction and go. But, you know, to me, I have felt a go-kart on concrete, you know, because it's low to the ground too. I felt it when, you know, the seat underskirt, I guess, is, you know, gets some uneven pavement and how wily it gets. I can't
Yeah.
imagine what that would feel like on a 200-mile-an-hour car, and how dangerous that would be, to your point.
Well, the curb that you were talking about in Mexico, that's not even a sausage curb. That's just a standard curb. So the sausage curbs, the turtle curbs, I think they call them in the US, are absolutely huge. Like they are. So this is like the size. I'll put it against my head for size. So it is huge. It's about this. The before the red bit. That's how big they are. So you're talking like a foot, something like that. So
Wow.
you know, there's no chance if you run over that, it will just break your car or your back. So yeah, there needs to be steps forward, and the FIA thankfully kind of making very, very small, slow steps to get rid of them. But there just needs to be some investment in some better technology just to, you know, make track limits less frustrating for fans and for drivers, but also, you know, make sure that it's not, you know, the consequences if you make a mistake, you know, it shouldn't be to break your back. Cars are designed to take impact into walls, sideways, forwards, but they're not designed to take 60G underneath. So
Sausage curbs or gravel traps? What
gravel traps, yeah.
as a driver though, don't you feel like getting beached is like if somebody bumps you on accident or, you know, pushes you wide and your race is over, do you still want a gravel trap over?
Yeah, because I'd rather have my race be over rather than my back be broken.
Depends on who I'm asking the question to.
And
Okay.
generally you can, you know, if you get bumped off, you can generally keep it going through the gravel. You know, it's, and we've seen Zandvoort this year where they did the special kind of resin gravel around the chicane just to try and keep the stones from being flicked up, and that worked quite well. So there are other things being kind of, you know, tested out. But if you look at a track, for example, like Zandvoort, where there isn't the ability to run wide, generally there's no track limit issues. So old school tracks all the way.
Okay, so 20 years in motorsport. What's been your pinch me moment? Like what?
As in a moment that I'll kind of remember forever, or?
Yeah, remember forever, or you just sat there and were like, I can't even believe that I'm in this situation or circumstance.
I think one of the kind of most treasured moments I have is my second championship that I won with my family run team. So it was the MX5 Super Cup, which you guys call them Miatas out there. So I ended up winning the UK championship of that, and it was a really crazy season of kind of, you know, there was about 6 of us going for the title, and, you know, I was leading 1 minute and then not the next, and it was kind of up and down. And I came into the last race and I had a 17-point lead. So really I just could cruise really for the weekend. I had 2 races and I could finish 4th or 5th, like in both of them type thing. But in race 1, my engine decided to give up, and we'd had no reliability issues all year, and it just gave up then. And, you know, we didn't have a spare, and, you know, we were kind of, my dad was like, well, look, you know, I'm going to need to sell the car anyway. So either I buy an engine now and we try and still win it tomorrow in the next race, or, you know, I'm going to need to buy one anyway. So there was like a scrapyard, salvage yard down the road from the track. So he rang them up, and they had a smashed up car that still ran, the engine still worked. So one of the teams went down and picked it up and brought it to the track, and they basically switched engines overnight. And so I was able to do the second race. Had to start from the back of the grid because I didn't finish the first race. And we have something called drop scores or drop points. So you can drop 2 races that are like your worst races. So if you imagine you get like 20 points for a win and then whatever for your rubbish position, you can actually drop your lowest scores. So in the first race, when my engine broke, I was able to drop that score. And then the next race, starting from the back of the grid, I thought, I'm not going to win this. Like my rival, he is currently, I think he was starting second place. and he needed to finish second to win. I was starting 38th, and I was like, well, okay, I'm just going to try and enjoy it. And I went out and I was possessed. I was, completely on autopilot, just, forward momentum all the time, trying to go, nip through everyone, past everyone. I think I passed like 14 cars on the first lap or something, and, did the fastest lap by a second and a half. Got up to just behind my rival, he was scrapping with someone, and he was, I think, in about 5th or 6th place. So I'm up behind him, and I'm like, okay, right, my work's done. I just need to finish here now, because if I finished there, then I would still win. And then with that, I got hit around. Someone hit me off, spun me around, and all this emotion came out. I was punching the steering wheel. I was like, my hands were black and blue. I was screaming. I was shouting. And I'm like, I can't believe I've just, I wasn't going to win it, and then I've just got to a point that I could, and then someone else has just hit me off. And came into the pit lane, burst into tears. My dad's like saying, oh, you were driving so well, like, don't worry. And what my uncle, who was the team manager, he was like, you've not lost it yet. The guy that's currently, you're fighting against, he needs to get to catch first place. And first place was like way ahead, because I'd got the fastest lap, which meant I got an extra point. So I actually, even though I didn't finish the race, I won the championship by 1 point because I got that fastest lap. And the relief and like the emotion was absolutely crazy. And like, not just for me, but like for all the family team, everyone involved. I had all my family there. And that's a moment that I will take with me for the rest of my life. If I could bottle up like that feeling that you had afterwards, that excitement and relief, and oh my God, I'd be a millionaire. I'd actually be able to pay to go racing myself if I could sell that little bottle. So yeah, that's the moment that I'll take with me, and it's actually on YouTube. If you type in Abbie, Eaton, Donington Park finale round, and it's a little 10-minute video, and it's definitely worth a watch.
I'm writing it down now.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm really, really, really pleased I got that on camera.
So has that situation of hopelessness, has that helped you in the future, to where if you get bumped, if you get knocked around, if you get a slow pit, whatever it is, has it helped you process the situation and move forward?
Yeah, I think you've just got to remember it's not over till it's over. And everything that's within your power, you need to take control of and make the best of that situation. And the stuff that you can't control, like, yes, it's probably going to be frustrating at times, but just try and forget about it and try and not let it bother you. And as long as the things that you have within your circle, like, make the most of them. And for example, when I broke my back, I'm like, oh my God, I was, this off season, I was really hoping to really build on, my strength and this and that, but I'm like, it's done now. So what can I control? I control, me eating well, me sleeping well, me doing my physio well, doing all that kind of stuff as best as I could. So it's very easy to get overwhelmed with the kind of journey and, fight back that you might have. But if you just make things a bit more bite-sized, break it down into what you can and can't control, then do those to the best of your ability. That's all you can do, isn't it?
What didn't you expect about motorsports?
What didn't I expect? I don't know. My life would revolve around 95% disappointment and 5% elation, because that's all motorsport is. It's a pain in the backside, and yet we still turn up every weekend to do it. I love it, absolutely love it. I don't know, there's nothing really that I kind of didn't expect. I was very lucky to grow up in motorsport, so I saw the highs, I saw the lows, I saw all the horrible nitty-gritty that it involves, and I was well prepared for the season coming up. I think maybe one thing I wasn't prepared for was how putting my mum through certain things. And like now, whenever, if there's anything that happens, if there's a crash or anything like that, you know, the first person I think of is my mum, and the first person I'll get out and put my hand up and be like, I'm okay, you know, to try and put my mum's little heart at ease, bless her.
Yeah, my son's doing his first year of private karting this year, and I understand the 95% frustration and 5% elation. We get it set up, and then the sun comes out and it changes the entire setup of the car. And I mean, I like racing. I'm not a mechanic, so I'm running around to the different dads, and I'm like, what do I do?
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
So in all the series that you've raced, what's been your favorite car? What's been the most exciting? What's been the funnest? Where you felt most at home?
European Rallycross. So I got an opportunity to do Rallycross 2019, and it's the most fun I've ever had. And if I could trade all the racing I've done to be able to race in World Rallycross, I 100% would do it. It was just so cool. And the car was, it's basically like a space frame car, and then they put like a manufacturer body kit on top. So all the cars are the same chassis effectively. And then one's got, mine was a Hyundai i30 kit on it. And then there was like an Audi A3, Mercedes A-Class, stuff like that. And, 4-wheel drive, sequential gearbox, anti-lag, big meaty tires, handbrake, big old handbrake. And it was so much fun, big skids all the time. And, just it honestly, I've never had so much fun in a car. And even, some of them I won, some of them I didn't. And even in the ones that I didn't win, the smile on my face was huge. I loved it.
Is there a career in that for you?
It's so expensive, unfortunately. I would love to do it, but the kind of rallycross community in the UK, we haven't got the best rallycross circuits over here, and there are some amazing ones in Europe. We've got kind of the home of rallycross with Linden Hill, but it's a very straightforward circuit. But yeah, I've driven some incredible ones in Germany and in Austria and places like that. So yeah, I'd love to get into that, but yeah, it's just the Wonga. It's the dosh, unfortunately.
How do you raise money right now? Do you market? Do you network? I mean, I understand that it's really costly to do that. And do you have a country of companies behind you? Do you have, how do you hold that?
Sponsorship, raising money, motorsport is tough. And, I try and kind of market myself on me. So you're buying me as the kind of product. And, I'm an ambassador for quite a few companies, whereby they're actually, it's okay having a car with stickers on and a livery, and, it's almost like a racehorse, the car, and, it's the racehorse and I'm the jockey. That's cool, but actually you want stuff that you can do off the circuit and, incorporate into businesses more. So, team building days, corporate speaking, guest appearances. And also if there's certain stuff that, I can actually use my expertise and put into developing something, for example, with the Fisker operation, that kind of stuff is really cool. But anything, to get ready for motorsport involves a lot of different things, being able to be fit, being able to kind of, when you're training, have certain gadgets and so on to kind of make sure that you're training the right things and you're monitoring yourself properly, and drinking the right solution, hydration tablets and all that kind of stuff. You are an athlete, and there are a lot of kind of industries from that you can kind of tap into and almost allow you to be used as a case study on, how you train, how your body reacts to being in the car with the G-forces and the heat. And, that can be quite useful for companies as well.
Does Fisker allow you the option to compete in Formula E? Does that open that door?
There is, I'm trying to think. Yeah. So Fisker doesn't restrict me from doing anything like that. in terms of, because they're an EV company, I would like to keep them in the loop anyway. In an ideal world, they would have a Formula E team. So, I'll keep dropping that seed in there and see if anything lands. But I think, obviously they're, and rightly so, they're 100% focused on getting the new Ocean out into the world. So once they've done that, and hopefully it's a nice success for them, then we can talk about racing teams.
I'm going to be rooting for you. I got to say, I've had you on the show and I've had Tatiana Calderon. By far the most like warrior like personalities that I've come across to date. I've been in sales and entrepreneurship my career, and so I'm always seeking out those personalities, and I really enjoy being around them because it's a good reminder for me to just to toughen up and suck it up and just go. And I gotta say, like, I've been really impressed with you. I'm rooting for whatever this next year looks like. Will W be around next year?
We're not sure yet. I think it's looking positive. All the signs and the conversations that we're having with W Series is that it should, be back next year, and that's great. Whether I'll be there, not sure yet. Again, more conversations to be had. But whatever happens, it's to make the most of the situation that you're in, and it's almost kind of mind over matter. And that's actually what I thought about when I was going through my injury. It's mind over matter now. There's nothing we can do, so you just have to get on with it. And that's similarly with the season ending early this year. It is what it is. Motorsport. I've done part seasons for many, many years of my career, so it's just another year in motorsport. So you have to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and then look for the next thing.
Good for you. What advice do you have for young female drivers chasing this dream?
I think actually now is a very, very good time to, if you're a young kind of female driver, there are so many opportunities around now to try and kind of get females into the sport, whether it's a driver or a mechanic or anything. So, knock on doors, send emails out. If they don't respond to you, send more emails out, look at other ways of contacting people, and, generally you'll be rewarded. There is a lot of new opportunities, for example, with this new Formula 4 championship that the FIA are talking about launching, and they'll be looking for all sorts of, people, whether it's apprenticeships or anything like that as well. So knock on doors, don't give up, keep going, keep asking, and work hard, and I'm sure that you'll succeed if you put the hard work in.
Abbie, thank you so much for coming on. Seriously, you've been a treat. I think your personality as a race car driver, a fighter pilot, whatever you want to call it, you have it. So keep going after it. You are always welcome on the show. If you ever want to make an announcement, you just shoot me an email and come on and tell everybody about it. And we're happy to have you. And anytime anything changes, please feel free to reach out. But I really appreciate you responding to my email to you to come on the show and tell us your story and, kind of what makes you tick. And
my pleasure.
For you. How can people find you?
I'm on most social media, so I suppose most people use Instagram, so Abbie Eaton 44. Same with Twitter, and Facebook is Abbie Eaton Racing. But yeah, if you find one of them, you'll be able to find the rest. You're not on TikTok yet? I am on TikTok, but I mainly just watch videos rather than make them. Okay. So obviously I've gotten TikTok for this show. It's a great place to showcase some of the video clips that I do on the show. And so my kids have just been begging for, they're 13 and 15, and they've been begging for social media. And it's like, I want to do TikTok because it's good and it gives me the right videos I want to watch. And so my approval came with, I'm 43 years old. So the only way that you can have TikTok is if you watch all my videos and then you critique them and tell me what I need to be doing to appeal to your generation. And so
you know, every day I get a download of like, yeah, Dad, don't do music on this one, or you know, do captions on that, or don't do transitions. It's I feel so out of touch when they come and tell me all these things, but I actually do enjoy it.
Yeah, TikTok's cool. It's it passes the time well, and actually, as you say, it's a very good way of kind of showing clips for stuff like this. Everything I think is going now away from photos, which is frustrating for a lot of us because we only do photos really, and having a video takes more time to do it, whereas you know when you're flat out busy, a quick snap of something you can post it later. So yeah, your kids need to help me become more tech savvy with videos. They can do my editing for my videos.
I can help you with that after we get
Yeah.
done recording. I'll send you somebody. So
Sweet, sounds good.
Abbie, thank you. I really appreciate it.
No worries, thanks a lot.